Trump-Iran deal near? SpaceX IPO looms. Carmelo Anthony guilty? And a Thai princess passes. Greetings, humanity! Let's grok the news, starting with the most important story in the world today. Dateline, Washington, D.C. President Donald Trump announced that the United States and Iran are close to signing a comprehensive agreement to end their brief but intense military confrontation. Trump stated the deal has been approved by all parties, including Israel, and immediately canceled planned additional U.S. strikes. According to multiple reports, American forces were roughly 3 hours from launching a major operation against Iranian targets when the breakthrough occurred. Trump described the impending pact as one that would formally end hostilities, reopen key shipping lanes, and bring stability to the region after days of escalating exchanges. He made the comments during a virtual rally and in follow-up statements emphasizing that the agreement would prevent further loss of life and economic disruption. U.S. Central Command confirmed that American forces conducted strikes on Iranian targets over 2 consecutive nights, following the downing of a U.S. helicopter and attacks on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Forces also shot down multiple Iranian drones in the area. Iran responded with its own strikes and denied that any final deal had been reached, calling reports of a finalized text media speculation. Tehran described the situation as fluid and said nothing had been concluded. The confrontation disrupted global oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical energy choke points. Trump claimed more than 100 million barrels of oil and 200 ships had already moved through the area under U.S. protection in the dark of night in recent days. 3 Indian sailors died when a U.S. strike hit an oil tanker in the zone. India has formally protested the incident and demanded accountability. South Asian and Gulf leaders reportedly raced to present Trump with a proposed framework that helped pause further escalation. The draft includes provisions to end related fighting in Lebanon, ease sanctions, and allow limited Iranian oil exports under supervision. Israeli officials have remained cautious but have not publicly opposed the current pause. The rapid sequence of events began after Iran threatened to close the strait once again and launched attacks on U.S. interests once again. The U.S. responded decisively while keeping diplomatic channels open. Analysts note that the fighting lasted roughly 12 hours of direct exchanges before this pause, marking one of the shortest major flare-ups in recent Middle East history. Domestically, the developments came as Congress debates broader foreign policy and defense spending. Markets reacted with relief on oil prices, though uncertainty remains until the signatures are on paper. Well, if you ask this observer, there's no certainty at all. Trump said the agreement could be signed as soon as this weekend if all sides honor the current de-escalation. Iranian officials continued to insist that core demands on sanctions relief and security guarantees must be met before any permanent ceasefire. U.S. officials described the current pause as conditional and warned that strikes would resume if Iran violates the terms again. The episode has highlighted the fragile balance of great power competition, energy security, and regional alliances. Shipping companies have rerouted vessels, of course, adding costs to global trade. European leaders have urged all parties to finalize the deal quickly to prevent further economic fallout. Europe and Asia really hurting. This story is developing rapidly, with diplomats working behind the scenes in multiple capitals. The White House says it will provide updates as negotiations advance toward a formal signing. I'm Robert Gardner, using Grok each weekday to truthfully summarize the news for you. I also give you my opinion, free of charge. We review a roundup of the most critical reports in the world right after this. M.S. Gardner, my wife, is author of last year's Moon Meridian Prize winner from April Gloaming Publishing, Wolf's Bane. It's a dark, serious, and modern take on an old fairy tale, a page-turning Southern Gothic story for adults. Wolf's Bane, available now at thecuriousauthor.com, or one word, thecuriousauthor.com. Also available on Amazon. Now, we grok the news with headlines from around the world. Dateline Seoul, South Korea. A South Korean court has sentenced former President Yoon Suk-yeol to an additional 30 years in prison for sending drones into North Korea. Yoon is already serving a life sentence for his short-lived martial law decree in 2024. The latest conviction adds to the political turmoil in Seoul as the country navigates security challenges on the peninsula and prepares for its World Cup campaign. Prosecutors presented evidence of direct orders, which Yoon's defense called politically motivated. The case underscores ongoing tensions between the two Koreas. Dateline Bangkok. The Thai royal household has announced the death of Princess Bajrakitiyabha Mahidol at age 47. She had been in a coma for more than 3 years following a medical emergency. The princess was known for her work in criminal justice reform and women's rights. Flags flew at half-staff across the kingdom as citizens mourned a popular member of the Chakri dynasty. Her passing comes at a sensitive time for Thai politics and national unity on Thailand. Dateline, London, the United Kingdom. British Defence Secretary John Healey has resigned after losing a battle for increased military spending. He accused Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government of making Britain less safe amid global threats. This latest resignation puts fresh pressure on the Labour government as it faces just criticism over defense readiness and NATO commitments it refuses to honor. Parliament is expected to debate the issue next week. More debate, more talk. Dateline Beijing. Chinese authorities have arrested a U.S. scholar suspected of spying. The case adds to the already strained relations between Washington and Beijing. U.S. officials have demanded consular access and information about the charges. The arrest comes amid ongoing technology competition and concerns over intellectual property and national security. Both sides continue high-level diplomatic contacts despite these tensions. Dateline Mexico City. Co-host Mexico opened the 2026 FIFA World Cup with a dramatic 2-0 victory over South Africa. Goals from Julian Quinones and Raul Jimenez delighted a capacity crowd as the tournament kicked off amid protests over costs and organization. The match featured red cards and hydration breaks in the heat. Organizers expect record carbon emissions from the expanded 48-team event. Okay, I'm sorry. Dateline Brussels. The European Union has adopted landmark asylum and migration reforms that harden border procedures. These new rules aim to speed up processing and returns while increasing solidarity among member states. Critics say that the measures are too strict. Supporters argue they are necessary for security and public confidence. The package takes effect as irregular arrivals continue across the Mediterranean. This observer believes that this is basically closing the barn doors after the horses have fled. Dateline Ottawa. A Toronto, Canada police officer was killed during a raid linked to the investigation of a shooting at a U.S. consulate. Authorities described the operation as high risk. This incident has heightened concerns about cross-border security threats and gang activity. Canadian officials vowed a thorough probe while offering condolences to the officer's family. Dateline New York. The U.S. Supreme Court has denied the state of Alabama's request to carry out a nitrogen gas execution. Justices cited procedural concerns in the last-minute appeal. The ruling keeps the death penalty debate alive as states experiment with new methods. Alabama officials expressed disappointment and said that they would review their next steps. As far as this observer is concerned, they could all save a lot of money and time just by going back to firing squads or a length of rope. Dateline Jakarta. Indonesian students have taken to the streets to protest rising fuel prices and living costs. Demonstrations remained largely peaceful, as we often hear about demonstrations. But these demonstrations do highlight the public frustration with economic pressures under President Prabowo. The government defended recent policy shifts and announced new subsidies for soybeans. Blackouts in Java added to public discontent. Dateline Belfast, Northern Ireland. Unrest in Belfast entered another night with vehicles set on fire and roads blocked. Police deployed water cannons after a brutal attempted beheading by a Sudanese migrant sparked anti-immigration protests. Leaders from all parties, of course, urged calm and condemned violence. There have been some false images and misinformation circulated on social media, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to the real images and the real information, which is bad enough. Dateline Austin, Texas. Carmelo Anthony has been sentenced to 35 years for the murder of a fellow student at a track meet. The case drew national attention after this stabbing during a high school event. Anthony filed notice of appeal as his legal team challenged aspects of the prosecution. The tragedy has renewed focus on youth violence prevention. This observer believes the focus should be on black crime specifically. Dateline Tokyo. Japan's H-3 rocket has successfully returned to flight after earlier setbacks. The launch marks an important step for Tokyo's independent space program and national security capabilities. Officials hailed the mission as a boost for technological confidence. Japan continues to expand its role in regional space and defense cooperation. Dateline Washington, D.C. President Trump has nominated U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton to serve as Director of National Intelligence. The move follows controversy over an earlier acting appointee. Clayton's confirmation hearings are expected to focus on intelligence reform and great power competition with China. The Senate Intelligence Committee will review the nomination. Dateline Manila. The Philippines has protested China's sanctions against its defense chief, calling that an unfriendly act. The dispute highlights ongoing tensions in the South China Sea. Manila continues to strengthen military ties with the U.S. while pursuing diplomatic channels with Beijing. Dateline Paris. Pope Leo has concluded a visit to the Canary Islands, emphasizing migrant dignity and condemning indifference to their plight. The pontiff cast flowers into the sea in tribute to those who died crossing the Atlantic route. His comments come as the EU implements new asylum rules. Well, this observer is sure that the Pope means the best, but he believes, that is to say, this observer believes, that the way to avoid migrants dying in ocean crossings is to stop the migration cold. Dateline Geneva. Europol has warned that children are being recruited into crime at an industrial scale across Europe. The agency cited growing use of minors in drug trafficking and cyber offenses. Officials called for urgent cross-border cooperation and better family support programs to counter the trend. This observer would call for all of the illegal migrants who have invaded Europe to be returned to their home countries. That'll stop a lot of this. And finally, Dateline Hawthorne, California. Elon Musk's SpaceX has raised $75 billion in fresh funding ahead of what is expected to be the largest initial public offering in history. The massive round values the company at levels that could make Musk the world's first trillionaire once the shares begin trading. The IPO marks a major milestone for the private space giant, which dominates commercial launches and Starlink satellite internet. Investors are betting heavily on SpaceX's dominance in reusable rockets and future lunar and Martian ambitions. The debut is anticipated today. My broker has got my money in hand and is waiting in line with everyone else. And I thank you for listening. Please join me Monday to once again Grok the News. I'm Robert Gardner. Godspeed and God bless.